August 5th, 2010. 4 p.m. I was eating my sandwich 2,300 feet below the surface of the earth when the mountain started screaming. Not rumbling, not shaking, screaming. The sound was unlike anything I'd ever heard in my 17 years as a miner. It was the sound of 700,000 tons of rock deciding it had had enough. The sound of a mountain collapsing in on itself. The sound of my tomb being sealed. My name is Mario, and for 69 days, the world thought I was dead. This is the story of how 33 men survived the impossible. Let me take you back to that morning. August 5th started like any other day at the San José copper-gold mine in the Atacama Desert of Chile. I woke up at 4 a.m. in my small house in Copiapó. Kissed my wife goodbye, told my kids I'd see them tomorrow. Tomorrow, that word would haunt me. The San José mine was old. Really old. It had been operating since 1889. Think about that for a second. This mine was older than most countries' constitutions. The tunnels twisted and turned like a concrete labyrinth, spiraling down into the earth in a massive spiral ramp we called the Serpent. We descended in trucks, winding down, down, down. 5 minutes of driving just to go deeper into darkness. The walls got warmer the further we went. The air got thicker. By the time you reached the bottom levels where we worked, you were in a completely different world. A world without sunlight, without fresh air, without any connection to the surface except that single spiral ramp, that single exit. I arrived at the mine around 6 a.m. with my shift. There were 33 of us working that day, spread across different levels of the mine. Some guys I'd known for years, others were newer. There was José, our shift supervisor, a man in his 50s who'd been mining since he was a teenager. There was Yoni, only 21 years old, his whole life ahead of him. There was our medic, a guy we called Doctor, even though he wasn't a real doctor. Just had some first aid training. We would all need to become experts in survival. The morning passed normally. Drilling, loading. The rhythmic sounds of mining that become like breathing after years in this profession. You stop hearing it after a while. The constant noise becomes silence. Around noon, I was working on level 190. That's mining speak for 190 meters below the entrance, but we were much deeper than that overall because the entrance itself was already high up in the mountain. I took my lunch break around 1 p.m., sat down with a few guys in a small refuge chamber we had set up. These refuge chambers were scattered throughout the mine, little safe zones with some supplies. We had no idea how important they would become. At 2 p.m., I went back to work. At 4 p.m., everything ended. I need you to understand something about sound underground. On the surface, sound travels and dissipates. Underground, it has nowhere to go. It bounces off walls, amplifies, becomes physical. You don't just hear explosions underground. You feel them in your chest, in your teeth, in your bones. So when that mountain started to collapse, every single one of us knew something catastrophic was happening. The first sound was like thunder, but deeper. It came from above us, from higher in the mine. Then the ground started shaking. Not like an earthquake, which I'd experienced before. This was different. This was the earth being torn apart. I dropped my drill and ran. You know what's terrifying? Running in absolute darkness while the ground is shaking and you have no idea which direction is safe. Our helmet lights bounced wildly as we sprinted through tunnels. Dust started filling the air. The sound got louder, closer. Boom. That's when the first major collapse happened. Somewhere above us, thousands of tons of rock had just fallen. The shock wave nearly knocked me off my feet. The dust cloud hit seconds later, so thick I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't think. I just kept running toward where I thought the ramp was, where I thought escape was. Other miners were screaming, calling out names. Mario, Jose, where are you? The dust was so thick that guys were passing within feet of each other and couldn't see. I finally made it to the ramp, the spiral ramp that led up to the surface, to freedom, to my family. That's when I saw it. Or rather, that's when I saw that there was nothing to see. The ramp was gone. Not damaged, not partially blocked. Gone. In its place was a solid wall of rock. A boulder the size of a 2-story house had fallen and completely sealed the passage. And behind it, thousands more tons of unstable rock, all pressed together like the mountain was clenching its fist. We were trapped. Have you ever had that nightmare where you're buried alive, where you're in a coffin underground and you can't get out? Now imagine that's not a nightmare. Imagine that's your reality. And imagine 32 other men are trapped with you. The dust took almost 30 minutes to settle enough for us to see each other. We gathered near the blocked ramp, all 33 of us, staring at that massive boulder like it might disappear if we looked at it hard enough. It didn't disappear. Jose, our shift supervisor, took charge immediately. He had to. Someone had to. Otherwise, panic would have killed us faster than anything else. "Everyone calm down," he said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the fear underneath. "We need to think. We need to plan." Someone, I think it was Raul, started crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears running down his dust-covered face. He had 3 kids at home, twin daughters who'd just turned 5. "Are we going to die down here?" Yoni asked. Remember, he was only 21. He'd been a miner for less than 2 years. Jose looked at him, looked at all of us. "No," he said. "They'll come for us. They know we're down here. They'll dig us out." But I could see the question in everyone's eyes. The same question that was in mine. How long will it take? We had no way of knowing that on the surface, things were even worse than we imagined. See, when the mountain collapsed, it didn't just seal us in. It kept collapsing. The entire upper section of the mine was destroyed. The entrance, the offices, the equipment storage, everything was buried under a mountain of rubble. The rescue teams that arrived couldn't even figure out where to start digging. The mine's ventilation shafts were crushed. The communication cables were severed. As far as anyone on the surface could tell, we were already dead. They would find equipment twisted and crushed. They would find empty trucks. They would find lunch boxes and water bottles. But they wouldn't find us. Not for a long time. That first night we gathered in the refuge chamber near the workshop area. This was the largest safe space we had access to, about the size of a living room. 33 men in a space meant for maybe 15. We did an inventory. This is the moment when reality really set in. We had several bottles of water, some cans of tuna, a few packages of crackers, some expired milk, a couple of bottles of peach preserves. Emergency rations that were supposed to last 48 hours. For 10 men, we had 33 men. And we had no idea if rescue would come in 48 hours or 48 days. Jose made a decision that probably saved all our lives. He rationed everything immediately. Strictly. 1 spoonful of tuna per man per day, a sip of milk, a bite of cracker. Do you know what a spoonful of tuna looks like? Put a spoonful on a plate right now and look at it. That's not a meal. That's not even an appetizer. That's a tease. But it was all we had. That first night, lying on the hard ground in the darkness, listening to 32 other men breathing and shifting and trying not to panic, I thought about my family. My wife would be worried by now. We should have finished our shift hours ago. She'd be calling my cell phone, but of course there was no signal down here. There was never signal down here. My kids would be asking, "Where's Papa?" What would she tell them? I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Tried to conserve energy. Tried not to think about the fact that I was 700 meters underground with no way out. I failed at all 3. Day 2. We woke up to the same darkness. Underground, there's no sunrise, no sunset, no way to tell what time it is except by checking the watches some of us wore. My watch said 6:42 a.m. On the surface, I would be getting ready for work. Here, I was work's prisoner. We spent that day exploring, trying to find another way out. The San José mine was massive, remember, miles of tunnels. Surely there was another exit, another ventilation shaft. Something. We found nothing. Every passage that led upward was blocked. Every ventilation shaft was crushed or too small to climb through. We tried digging through some of the smaller rock falls with our hands and tools, but for every stone we removed, 3 more would tumble down. The mountain wasn't just blocking our exit. It was actively keeping us trapped. By day 3, the hunger really started to set in. You might think humans can go weeks without food, and technically that's true. But your body doesn't know that. Your body starts screaming for food immediately. My stomach felt like it was eating itself. The single spoonful of tuna we received felt like torture. It was enough to remind your taste buds what food was, but not enough to satisfy anything. Some guys started getting irritable, snapping at each other over nothing. That's what hunger does. It makes you irrational, angry. Jose had to play referee, had to keep everyone calm, keep everyone working together, because if we turned on each other down here, we were all dead. Day 4, day 5, day 6. The days started blurring together. We established a routine because humans need routine. Even in hell, we need structure. We would wake up at what we decided was 6 a.m., have our morning meal, which was basically a few sips of water and maybe a small bite of something. Then we'd spend the day doing tasks. Some guys would maintain our equipment, keeping the trucks running even though we had nowhere to drive. It gave them something to do. Purpose. Others would explore, still hoping to find a passage we'd missed. I volunteered to help conserve our resources, calculate our food, ration our water. The water situation was actually what saved us. See, the mine had an industrial water system for drilling. It wasn't clean drinking water, but it was water. We found a pool of it in one of the lower levels. It was contaminated with minerals, tasted like rust and dirt, but it was drinkable. With that water, we wouldn't die of thirst, but we would die of starvation. By day 10, things were getting strange. You need to understand what complete isolation does to the human mind. We had no contact with the outside world, no radios, no phones, no way to know if anyone was even looking for us. For all we knew, they'd given up, declared us dead, moved on. Some of the men started having conversations with people who weren't there. I'd hear Yanni talking in the darkness, and when I'd ask who he was talking to, he'd say his mother. But his mother wasn't there. None of our families were there. We were utterly, completely alone. The darkness was the worst part. We had to conserve our helmet lights, so we spent most of our time in complete blackness. The kind of darkness that's so absolute you can't see your hand touching your nose. In that darkness, your mind plays tricks on you. You hear things that aren't there, see things that can't exist. The isolation, the hunger, the fear, they all combine into this psychological pressure that squeezes your sanity like a vice. I started having vivid dreams about food, elaborate feasts with my family. I'd dream I was eating a steak, and it felt so real I could taste it. Then I'd wake up to darkness and hunger and the reality that I might never eat steak again, might never eat anything again. On day 12, we had a meeting. Jose gathered us all together in the refuge. "We need to talk about rescue," he said. The room went silent. "It's been almost 2 weeks," he continued. "If they haven't found us by now." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "Maybe they think we're dead," someone said. "Maybe they've stopped looking," another voice added. "Or maybe," Jose said firmly, "they're still digging. Maybe they're working right now. Maybe they'll break through tomorrow." But his voice lacked conviction. We all heard it. That's when Yoni stood up. This 21-year-old kid who'd barely lived, who should have been out dancing with girls and planning his future. "I'm not going to die down here," he said. His voice was shaking but determined. "I refuse to die in this hole. So whatever we need to do to survive until they reach us, we do it, understand?" One by one, we all nodded. We made a pact that night. We wouldn't give up. We wouldn't turn on each other. We'd survive together or die together. But we'd prefer the surviving part. Day 17, August 22nd. I was sleeping when I heard it. Or maybe I was hallucinating. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. A drilling sound. Not our drills. Something else. Something coming from above. I sat up, my heart pounding. Around me, other men were stirring. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. "I hear it," Jose said. He was already on his feet. We all went silent, straining to hear. There it was again. Distant, but definitely there. The sound of drilling from somewhere above us. "They're coming," someone shouted. The refuge erupted in chaos. Men were crying, laughing, hugging each other. After 17 days of silence, of isolation, of slowly starving in the dark, we finally had proof. They hadn't given up on us. They were still looking. But here's the thing about hope. It can be as dangerous as despair, because now we had to make a choice. Do we wait where we are? Do we try to reach the drilling sound? And most importantly, how do we let them know we're alive? The drilling sound came and went over the next few hours. Sometimes loud, sometimes faint, sometimes gone completely. We realized they were probably doing exploratory drilling, sending down boreholes to try to figure out the mine structure. If we could reach one of those boreholes, we could send up a message. But how? The mine was a maze. The drilling could be happening anywhere in hundreds of meters of rock above us. We'd have to get lucky. Incredibly lucky. But we'd been unlucky for 17 days straight. Maybe it was time for our luck to change. We organized search parties. Groups of men would explore different areas of the accessible mine, listening for the drilling sound, trying to triangulate where it was coming from. I was in a group with 3 other guys. We took one of the trucks and drove through the tunnels, stopping every few hundred meters to listen. The hope was intoxicating. After more than 2 weeks of despair, we suddenly had a mission, a purpose, a chance. But the drilling would start and stop. Hours would pass with nothing, then suddenly we'd hear it again, but from a different direction. Were they drilling multiple holes? Were they moving their equipment? On day 18, we found something. We were in a tunnel on one of the upper levels when we heard the drilling sound much louder than before. It was close. Really close. "Everyone shut up," Jose hissed. We froze. Listened. The sound was coming from above us. Maybe 50 meters away. Maybe less. And then we heard it. A new sound. The sound of a drill bit breaking through rock into empty space. Into our tunnel. "There!" Raoul pointed at the ceiling. "Look!" We all turned our lights upward. There, in the ceiling of the tunnel, dust was falling. A tiny hole appeared, no bigger than my fist. The drill bit had punched through. For a moment, we all just stared at it. This little hole, this tiny puncture in our tomb, was our lifeline to the surface. Then chaos erupted. Everyone started shouting at once. "We're here. Down here. Help us!" But the drill bit retreated back up through the hole almost immediately. They couldn't hear us. Of course they couldn't. We were shouting into a tiny hole that went up through 700 meters of rock. We needed a better plan. Jose had an idea. "We need to attach something to the drill," he said. "When they pull it back up, they'll find it." But attach what? We had no paper, no way to write a message. All we had was mining equipment and rocks. That's when someone remembered the spray paint. We used it for marking walls and equipment. We found several cans of red and white paint in the workshop, but we still needed something to attach to the drill. The drill bit itself was too slick. Anything we put on it would just fall off. We waited, hoping the drill would come back through, hoping they'd try again. Hours passed. The hole in the ceiling just sat there, mocking us. A tiny connection to the world above that we couldn't use. Then, on day 20, August 25th, we heard it again. The drilling sound was back, and this time, it was coming through the same hole. We scrambled into position. We'd spent the past 2 days preparing for this moment. We'd found some plastic sheeting and had written on it with spray paint, "Estamos bien en el refugio, los 33s. We are fine in the refuge, 33, the 33 of us." It was a lie, of course. We weren't fine. We were starving and desperate and running out of time. But we were alive. All 33 of us. That's what mattered. The drill bit pushed through the hole again, spinning rapidly. We had seconds to act. Maybe less. José, being the supervisor and the bravest among us, climbed up on a truck bed to reach the hole. He'd wrapped the plastic note around a piece of pipe and had tied it with wire. "Get ready," he shouted. The drill bit descended further into the tunnel, just a few inches, but enough. José lunged forward with the pipe and note, trying to jam it onto the drill or attach it somehow. The drill was spinning so fast it was dangerous to even get near it. He tried once. Missed. The drill started to retreat. "Now!" someone screamed. José tried again, and this time the wire caught on something. The pipe and note wrapped around the drill bit. He let go and jumped back just as the drill pulled upward. We all held our breath as the drill bit retreated back up through the hole, taking our message with it. And then silence. The drill was gone. The hole was empty. Our message was traveling up through 700 meters of rock. Would they find it? Would they see it? Or would our note fall off halfway up, leaving us trapped with no way to signal for help? The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. Longer than the previous 20 days combined. Because now we had hope, and hope is torture when you're waiting. We stayed near that hole in the ceiling, taking turns watching it, as if watching it would make the rescuers come faster. Some of the men prayed, some paced, some just sat in silence. I thought about my family. My wife had probably been told I was dead by now. They would have held a memorial. My kids would be crying. My mother would be devastated. And here I was, alive, just 700 meters below their feet, unable to tell them I was okay. Well, not okay, but alive. Day 21. Still nothing. Day 22. The drilling sound returned, but from a different location. Were they drilling more exploratory holes? Had they found our note? We had no way of knowing. The psychological torture of not knowing was almost worse than the hunger. At least with hunger, you understand what's happening. Your body is running out of fuel. Simple. But this was our minds being stretched on a rack of uncertainty. And then, on August 28th, day 23, we heard something new. Voices, faint, distorted, but definitely voices coming from the hole in the ceiling. "Hello," the voice called down. "Can you hear us?" Every single one of us erupted in screams. "Yes, we're here. We can hear you." We were so loud, so desperate to be heard, that we were probably deafening whoever was up there. The voice came again. "We found your note. All 33 of you are alive." "Yes," José shouted back. "All 33. "Help is coming," the voice called down. "Stay where you are. We're going to get you out." And just like that, after 23 days of complete isolation, we weren't alone anymore. Through that tiny hole, they lowered a PVC pipe, a communication system. Suddenly, we could talk to the surface. Really talk. The first conversations were chaotic. Everyone wanted to talk to their families, Everyone wanted to know what was happening. Everyone wanted to know how long until rescue. That last question, that's when reality set back in. The rescue coordinator, a man named André Sougaret, explained the situation. The collapse had been catastrophic. The main ramp was completely destroyed, buried under thousands of tons of unstable rock. They couldn't dig through it. It would take months, and the entire thing might collapse further. Their plan was to drill a rescue shaft, a hole wide enough for a rescue capsule to be lowered down and bring us up one at a time. How long? José asked. There was a pause. 2 to 4 months. 2 to 4 months. Let that sink in. We'd been trapped for 23 days and were already at the edge of survival. Now we had to survive for potentially 4 more months. But at least now we had support. They started sending down supplies through the narrow borehole. First water, then food. High-calorie protein drinks. Glucose. Medicine. That first real meal in 23 days. I can't even describe it. The protein drink tasted like liquid gold. I drank it slowly, savoring every drop, feeling my body wake up from its starvation stupor. They sent down letters from our families. Mine was from my wife. Her handwriting was shaky, like she'd been crying while writing it. Mario, mi amor, we thought you were dead. We held a funeral. The kids cried for days. But you're alive. You're alive. Stay strong. Come home to us. We love you. I read that letter probably 100 times over the next few weeks. Every word was a lifeline. Now began the strangest chapter of our ordeal. We were still trapped 700 meters underground, but now we had support from the surface. It was like being an astronaut in space, completely dependent on mission control for survival. They sent down everything we needed. Food, water, medicine, entertainment, playing cards, dominoes, even a tiny projector so we could watch movies on the wall of the refuge. But they also sent down structure, rules, a schedule. The psychologists on the surface knew that keeping us mentally stable was just as important as keeping us physically healthy. So they gave us jobs, responsibilities. We were divided into teams. One team handled the supplies that came down the borehole. Another team maintained the equipment. Another team was responsible for our living space. I was assigned to the health monitoring team. Every day, we'd take everyone's vital signs and report them to the surface. Blood pressure, heart rate, temperature. The medic, our doctor, oversaw this, but we all helped. It gave us purpose. It made us feel like we were doing something, not just waiting to be rescued. But here's what they don't show you in the movies about survival situations. The boredom, the crushing, soul-destroying boredom. We were living in a space about the size of a small apartment, 33 men, with nowhere to go and nothing to do except wait. Weeks turning into months. The same faces, the same conversations, the same walls. We established territories, small areas where each man could have some privacy. It wasn't much. Maybe a sleeping bag and a few personal items, but it was ours. We had arguments. Of course we did. Put 33 men in a confined space for months and see what happens. Arguments about food distribution, about noise, about who was hogging the satellite phone we'd been sent to call our families. José and the older miners had to act as mediators constantly, breaking up fights before they started, keeping the peace. There were moments of joy, too. Someone's birthday would come around and the surface would send down a cake. We'd sing, laugh, pretend for a few minutes that we were at a normal party and not trapped in a hole in the ground. They sent down a guitar. A few of the guys knew how to play. Music helped. It gave us something besides darkness and silence. While we waited, 3 different drills were working above us. 3 separate attempts to bore a rescue shaft wide enough to fit a rescue capsule. We could hear them, day and night, the grinding sound of drill bits chewing through rock. Sometimes it was comforting, a reminder that people were working to save us. Other times it was maddening, a constant noise that never let you forget where you were. Plan A was a massive drill rig that was supposed to be the fastest option, but it kept breaking down. The rock was harder than expected. The drill bits would break. Plan B was slower but steadier. Plan C was the backup, the insurance policy. Every day we'd get updates on their progress. Plan A has reached 200 meters depth. Plan B is at 150 meters. We tracked it obsessively. It became our entire world. Those numbers were the difference between freedom and imprisonment. But progress was agonizingly slow. Meters per day, sometimes less. The hardest part was when a drill would hit a problem, hit a section of particularly hard rock, or when a drill bit would break and they'd have to extract it and replace it, losing days of progress. Each setback felt personal, like the mountain was fighting against us, like it didn't want to let us go. Around day 50, things got bad. The initial euphoria of being found had worn off. The reality of how long we'd been underground was setting in. The psychological pressure was immense. One of the guys, I won't say who, had a complete breakdown, started screaming that we were never getting out, that the drills would never reach us, that they'd give up and leave us here. It took 4 of us to calm him down. The surface sent down anti-anxiety medication, but we all understood what he was feeling because we all felt it. The doubt, the fear, the growing suspicion that maybe we'd die down here after all. The psychologists on the surface were worried about us. We could hear it in their voices during our communications. They started doing daily mental health check-ins with each of us individually. "How are you feeling, Mario?" How was I feeling? I was feeling like I'd been buried alive for almost 2 months. I was feeling like I might never see my children grow up. I was feeling like the walls were closing in even though they weren't. But I said, I'm fine, hanging in there. Because what else do you say? Day 60. Plan B had reached 500 meters, halfway there, but progress had slowed. The drill was overheating, breaking down constantly. Plan A had been abandoned. The drill had gotten stuck and they couldn't retrieve it. All our hopes were on Plan B now. Day 65, 600 meters. We could feel it, sense it. Rescue was close. The finish line was in sight, but those last 100 meters felt longer than all the previous days combined. Day 68. The drill broke through. I wasn't there when it happened. I was sleeping in the refuge when someone started shouting, "They broke through! The drill broke through!" I ran to where everyone was gathering. There, in a section of tunnel we'd cleared out specifically for this moment, was a hole. A proper hole. Wide enough to fit a person. Wide enough to fit a rescue capsule. We did it. They did it. After 68 days underground, we finally had a way out. The celebration was indescribable. Men were crying, hugging, dancing. Even José, our stoic supervisor, had tears running down his face. But we weren't out yet. They called the rescue capsule Phoenix. Phoenix, like the bird that rises from the ashes. It was a metal cylinder, painted in the Chilean colors of red, white, and blue. Just barely wide enough for one person to stand in, with a harness and oxygen and communication equipment. The plan was simple. They'd lower the Phoenix down the shaft. One of us would get in. They'd pull us up, repeat 33 times. But who would go first? The debate was intense. Do you send the weakest first, the ones most in need of medical attention? Or do you send the strongest first, in case something goes wrong and the first rescues need to help fix problems? In the end, the decision was made by the engineers and psychologists on the surface. They'd send down a rescue specialist first to assess conditions and help organize the evacuation. Then we'd start sending miners up. The youngest, Yoni, would be in the first group. The logic was that the younger guys were more adaptable and would handle the stress of the rescue better. The older guys, including José, would go last. Leaders go down with the ship, as they say. Or in this case, leaders leave the mine last. I was assigned to the middle group. Number 17, October 13th, 2010. Day 69. The Phoenix descended into our underground world around 11 p.m. the night before. A rescue specialist named Manuel Gonzalez was inside. When the capsule doors opened and he stepped out, it was surreal. Someone from the surface. Someone who could leave any time he wanted. Someone who wasn't one of the 33. He assessed our conditions, checked the rescue plan, and gave the green light. The evacuation could begin. At midnight, Florencio Avalos, one of our youngest miners, was strapped into the Phoenix. We all gathered around to watch. This was the moment we'd been waiting for, the moment that would determine if this rescue was really going to work. The capsule doors closed. The cable grew taut, and slowly, the Phoenix began to rise. It took about 15 minutes for it to reach the surface. The longest 15 minutes of Florencio's life, I'm sure. Imagine being pulled up through 700 meters of rock in a metal tube barely wider than your shoulders, knowing that if anything went wrong, you'd be stuck in that shaft. But nothing went wrong. When word came down that Florencio had reached the surface safely, that he was out, that he was breathing fresh air and seeing stars and hugging his family, we erupted in celebration again. 1 down, 32 to go. The Phoenix made trip after trip. Down, pick up a miner. Up, drop him off. Down again. Every 2 hours or so, another one of us would be freed. I watched as my friends and colleagues were loaded into that capsule, one by one. Watched them disappear up into the shaft. Watched the population of our underground prison decrease. It's a strange feeling, watching your companions leave when you have to stay behind. Joy for them, mixed with anxiety for yourself. What if something went wrong? What if the rescue had to stop before everyone got out? The Phoenix had some issues. Nothing major, but enough to be worrying. The capsule would get stuck occasionally on the rough walls of the shaft. They'd have to work it free. Each time that happened, we'd all hold our breath, wondering if this was it, if this was when the rescue would fail. But each time, they fixed the problem and the rescue continued. By the time it was my turn, 16 men had already been rescued. 16 men were breathing fresh air and seeing their families. Now it was my turn. I stepped into the Phoenix around 4 a.m. on October 13th. The capsule was tight. Really tight. If you're even slightly claustrophobic, this would be your nightmare. A metal tube barely wider than your body, completely enclosed except for a small window. They strapped me in. The harness was tight against my chest. They gave me a headset so I could communicate with the surface during the ascent. They gave me oxygen even though there was air in the capsule, just in case. Ready? Manuel asked me. Was I ready? I'd been underground for 69 days. I'd lost 20 pounds. I hadn't seen the sun in over 2 months. My kids thought I was dead. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The doors closed. For a moment, I was in complete darkness. Then small lights inside the capsule turned on. The cable grew tight. I felt the capsule lurch slightly, and then I was moving upward. Have you ever been in an elevator? Now imagine that elevator is just barely wider than you are, and instead of going up a few floors, it's going up 700 meters through solid rock. And if something goes wrong, you're stuck in there. The ascent was slow. So slow. I could hear the cable creaking, could feel the capsule scraping against the walls of the shaft occasionally, could see through the small window as rock face passed by, illuminated by the lights on the outside of the capsule. I tried to stay calm, tried to breathe normally, but my heart was racing. Through the headset, I could hear the rescue coordinators on the surface. You're doing great, Mario. Everything's normal. Just keep calm. I wanted to ask how much longer, but I kept quiet. Let them focus on their job. The ascent felt like it lasted hours. In reality, it was about 15 minutes. 15 minutes to travel from hell back to heaven. And then, after what felt like an eternity, the movement stopped. The capsule had reached the surface. The doors of the Phoenix opened. The first thing that hit me was the air. Fresh air, clean air, air that hadn't been recycled through the lungs of 33 desperate men for 2 months. I breathed in deep, and it was the best breath I'd ever taken. The second thing was the light. Even though it was night time, the rescue site was lit up like a stadium. Floodlights everywhere. After 69 days of darkness, it was almost painful to see. The third thing was the noise. Cheering, thousands of people cheering. I couldn't see them yet because I was still in the extraction area, but I could hear them. Hands reached into the capsule. Rescue workers and medics helping me out, unstrapping me from the harness. My legs were shaky. I'd been sitting in that capsule for 15 minutes, and before that had been underground for 69 days. My muscles didn't quite remember how to work properly. They guided me out of the capsule and onto solid ground, surface ground, real ground. And there, past the medical team and the rescue workers, I saw them. My family, my wife, my kids, my mother, all of them crying, screaming my name. I tried to walk to them, but my legs gave out. The medics caught me, helped me stay upright. They wanted to take me to the medical tent first, do a quick examination, but I couldn't wait. I needed to see my family. They let them approach, and then my wife was in my arms, and she was real, she was solid, she was there. My kids were hugging my legs, crying and laughing at the same time. "Papa, you're alive, you're really alive." I held them and cried like I hadn't cried underground. Cried out 69 days of fear and desperation and hunger and darkness. I was alive, I was free, I was home. But my rescue wasn't the end. There were still 16 men underground, 16 men waiting their turn. After my medical check, after reuniting with my family, I watched as the Phoenix continued its work. Watched as more of my brothers came up, one by one. Each rescue was celebrated like the first. The cheering never died down. Every miner that emerged was a hero. Every rescue was a miracle. The whole world was watching, literally. They told us later that over 1 billion people worldwide had tuned in to watch the rescue. Our story had captured hearts everywhere. As the sun rose on October 13th, the rescues continued. Day turned into afternoon, afternoon into evening. Finally, at around 9 p.m., 21 hours after the rescues had begun, there was only one man left underground. José, our shift supervisor, our leader, the man who had kept us alive and sane for 69 days, the man who had decided to be the last one out. When José emerged from the Phoenix, the cheering was deafening. This wasn't just any miner. This was the man who had held 33 men together under impossible circumstances. He stepped out of the capsule, looked around at all of us, at the rescue workers, at the thousands of people celebrating, and he smiled. We all rushed forward to embrace him, all 32 of us who had come before him. We hugged and cried and laughed. We had done it. All 33 of us had survived. All 33 of us were out. The impossible had happened. The days and weeks after the rescue were a blur. First, there was the medical care. We were all taken to the hospital in Copiapó for thorough examinations. Physically, we were in better shape than expected. Some vitamin deficiencies, some weight loss, some dental problems from the poor nutrition, but nothing life-threatening. The psychological evaluations were more concerning. PTSD, anxiety, depression. These would be the real long-term effects of our ordeal. I had nightmares for months after. Still do sometimes. Dreams of being trapped again, of the darkness closing in. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, gasping for air, reaching for my wife to confirm I was really home. Then there was the media circus. Everyone wanted our story. News organizations from around the world, book deals, movie offers. We were instant celebrities. Some of the guys embraced it. Did the interview circuit, told their stories over and over. Others withdrew, wanted nothing to do with the spotlight. I was somewhere in between. I felt like people needed to hear what we went through, needed to understand the miracle of our survival, but I also needed to heal, to process what had happened. The Chilean government held an investigation into the mine collapse. What had caused it? Who was responsible? The San José mine had a history of safety violations, of corners cut to save money. The owners claimed it was an unpredictable geological event. Others said it was negligence, criminal negligence. In the end, the case dragged on for years. Some charges were filed, some were dropped. The legal system ground slowly while we tried to rebuild our lives. 1 year after the rescue, all 33 of us gathered at the site of the mine. October 13th, 2011. The mine was closed now. Sealed. A memorial had been erected with all our names on it. Standing there, looking at that mountain that had held us prisoner, was emotional. Part of me wanted to hate it, wanted to curse the rock that had stolen 69 days of my life. But another part was grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for the second chance. We hugged each other, these 32 men who had shared the worst experience of my life. We'd formed a bond that could never be broken. We were brothers now, survivors together. José gave a speech, thanked everyone who had worked to rescue us, thanked our families for never giving up hope, thanked God for bringing us through. We were 33 men who went into that mountain, he said, and 33 men came out. That's the real miracle. Not just that we survived, but that we all survived. Together. Some of the guys had moved on pretty well, found new jobs, new purposes. Yoni, our youngest, had become a motivational speaker, traveling the world, telling our story, inspiring people. Others struggled. The trauma had been too much. Some couldn't work. Some turned to alcohol or drugs to cope with the memories. I fell somewhere in the middle again. I found a job on the surface, working in mining safety, helping to make sure what happened to us would never happen to anyone else. My family helped keep me grounded. My kids, who were older now, who had lived through the nightmare of thinking their father was dead. My wife, who had been my rock even when I was trapped underground. People ask me all the time what I learned from being trapped underground for 69 days. What wisdom did I gain from that experience? Here's what I tell them. First, never give up. Even when things seem impossible. Even when you think there's no way out. Keep fighting. Keep hoping. Because miracles happen. They really do. Second, you're stronger than you think. All of us are. We have reserves of strength and endurance we don't know about until we're forced to use them. You can survive things you never thought you could survive. Third, community matters. We survived because we stayed together, because we supported each other. Fourth, appreciate what you have. I don't take anything for granted anymore. Not fresh air, not sunlight, not a good meal, not a hug from my kids. Every day above ground is a gift. Fifth, leadership is crucial. Without José, without his calm authority and decision-making, we might not have all made it. Leaders matter, especially in crisis. And finally, the human spirit is incredible. 33 men survived 69 days in conditions that should have killed us. We survived through ingenuity, determination, hope, and love. Love for our families. Love for each other. Love for life itself. That's what got us through. That's what brought us home. It's been years since the rescue now. More than a decade. The world has moved on. Other disasters have happened. Other rescue stories have captured headlines. But for those of us who lived it, October 13th, 2010, will always be special. Our personal Independence Day. Some of the 33 are doing great. Successful, happy, thriving. They took the experience and used it as fuel to build better lives. Some are struggling. The mental health impacts of what we went through don't just disappear. Some of my brothers are still fighting that battle every day. A few have passed away. Not from the mine collapse, but from life, from illness and accidents and the simple passage of time. Each time I hear that one of the 33 has died, it hits hard. We survived the impossible together. We cheated death together. And now death is slowly claiming us anyway, one by one, the way it claims everyone eventually. As for me, I'm grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for every day I get to wake up next to my wife, to see my children grow, to feel the sun on my face. I still think about those 69 days. How could I not? They're part of me now, part of my story. They've shaped who I am. Sometimes I have moments where I'm in a small space, an elevator or a closet, and I feel the panic rising, the memory of being trapped. My heart races, my breathing gets shallow, and I have to remind myself, you're not underground, you're safe, you're free, and I am free. We all are. We escaped that mountain, and we're still here, still living, still fighting, still surviving. If you're watching this and you're going through something hard right now, if you're trapped in your own personal mine, here's what I want you to know. Hold on. Even when it seems impossible, even when you can't see a way out, even when the darkness feels like it will never end, hold on. Because rescue might be closer than you think. Help might be coming. The drill might be just meters away from breaking through. You just have to hold on long enough for it to reach you. We held on for 69 days. 69 days of darkness, hunger, fear, and desperation. And we made it out. You can too. Whatever mountain is crushing you right now, whatever weight is pressing down on you, you're stronger than you know. You can survive this. You will survive this. And when you do, when you finally break through to the surface, when you finally breathe that fresh air again, it will be the sweetest breath you've ever taken. I know, I've been there, I've lived it, and I'm here to tell you that survival is possible. Hope is real. Miracles happen. Keep fighting, keep hoping, keep holding on. Your rescue is coming. My name is Mario. I was one of the 33 Chilean miners trapped underground in the San José mine collapse of 2010. I spent 69 days in the darkness, 69 days that changed my life forever. But I survived. We all survived. And that's not just a story about a mining accident. It's a story about the strength of the human spirit, about the power of hope, about the importance of never giving up. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for remembering what happened to us. Thank you for keeping the memory of that miracle alive. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it reminded you of the strength within you, please share it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment telling me your own survival story. Because we all have one. We've all been trapped in our own ways. We've all faced our own mountains, and we're all survivors. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never, ever give up. Gracias. Thank you, and God bless.